And here we are. We are back. Now, I know what you must be thinking. Why am I wearing a hat? Well, it's because, it's because my hair kind of looks goofy. Looks real goofy. It doesn't look goofy in real life, but it looks goofy on camera because it's reversed. But, yeah. Oh, they released a new one. I did not watch this. Why don't we just shoot
Experience
some
more
radio-
private
radio
events
shows
from
instead?
Chase Sapphire Reserve.
A lot of storage
Jerry,
space, no?
it's only November.
This Wawa Peppermint Bar Cream Smoothie says...
The limited edition
Eventually, I'll decorate this wall with stuff. Don't worry, I will.
2023 Kurzgesagt calendar is here. Every purchase enables us to make videos free for everyone. So get one for yourself or a loved one and be a sponsor of the following video. Eternal gratitude from us and all the burbs around the world.
There we go.
Here in the Kurzgesagt Labs, we test very important ideas to see what happens when you blow things up or play with black holes. Many of you suggested that we look into an idea that sounds reasonable: shooting nuclear waste into space.
Seems like a great
It's
idea.
one of those concepts that seems like an easy fix for one of the main problems with nuclear energy. But it turns out this idea is not just bad, but horribly bad, and it gets worse the longer you think about it.
Well, it affects-
Why is that?
It affects
What is nuclear waste? Nuclear waste is a fuzzy term and comes in categories which vary from country to country. But in general, there are three broad levels. 90% is low-level nuclear waste, tools, gloves, or trash used at a nuclear facility that could be weakly contaminated with some short-lived radioactivity. This stuff is generally safe for normal disposal. 7% is intermediate-level nuclear waste, mostly materials that have been in close proximity to a reactor core long enough to become dangerously radioactive. With proper handling, it's either safely buried or melted down and mixed into glass or concrete and stored deep underground. So 97% of nuclear waste is similar to toxic byproducts from other industries. Not great, not terrible. We can handle it. The remaining 3% is where our problems begin. High-level nuclear waste is very concentrated spent fuel taken out of a reactor core. Formerly uranium, it's now made of various dangerous and often highly radioactive elements. As a bonus, it's also incredibly hot and not easy to handle at all. This is what we want to shoot into space.
I see.
All in all, around 440 active nuclear reactors create about 11,000 tons of high-level nuclear waste each year.
That's a lot.
Since 1954, we've accumulated 400,000 tons of dangerous radioactive waste. Most countries are dealing with it by not dealing with it and kicking the can towards the future. Great, so let's launch it into space. According to scientists, space is big, and nobody lives there, so it seems perfect for yeeting away this mess.
Yeah, it does.
There are a few tiny problems though.
Send it at the sun.
Problem one, stuff ain't cheap.
It's true.
Even though spaceflight is getting more affordable, it's still extremely expensive. Just to get something into low Earth orbit costs on average about $4,000 per kilogram. Putting that into perspective, it costs about $1,600 to mine, separate and fabricate 1 kilogram of nuclear fuel, so launching waste into space has suddenly made nuclear fuel for reactors way more expensive and greatly increased the cost of the electricity they produce. To launch 1 reactor's worth of nuclear waste would cost at least $100 million per year. To deal with all the 440 operational nuclear power plants' high-level nuclear waste would cost some $44 billion per year for space launch before packaging, transport and security costs are added. Okay, let's pretend we don't care. Currently, we couldn't shoot all the nuclear waste into space even if we wanted to. There just aren't enough rockets. In 2021, we saw a record 135 launches into space. If we repurposed each of those rockets and filled them all with nuclear waste, the total amount that could be lifted into a low Earth orbit, which is the closest orbit above the atmosphere, is nearly 800 tons. We'd need at least 14 times more rockets to handle just today's nuclear waste, let alone get rid of the hundreds of thousands of tons in temporary storage. We would need to create entire new space industries to keep up with the demand for giant, toxic space trash trucks. And it gets worse. Problem 2. Space is hard. We only made the calculation for low Earth orbit, where we send most of our rockets and satellites. Littering the space around Earth with thousands of casks of spent nuclear fuel would be a nightmare for space junk management and satellite collision avoidance. Worse still, at this altitude, there's still a little bit of atmosphere causing a tiny bit of drag, so we might have nuclear waste raining down from space within just a few years. Experts would call this a huge problem. Clearly, we have to launch our waste further. If we wanted to send it to, perhaps, the moon, we either need way more rockets or we need to build much bigger ones, making it even more expensive. A single Saturn V, the rocket used by the Apollo program, which cost around $1.5 billion adjusted for inflation per launch, could get about 43.5 tons from the Earth to the moon. So we'd need about 260 Saturn V rocket launches every year. And of course, using the moon as target practice for nuclear waste-tipped rockets kind of makes a huge mess.
It'll be fine.
So maybe don't aim for anything. Space is empty. Do we really need a target? Shooting waste in any random direction is, you guessed it, also a bad idea. Orbits are loops, which means they have a tendency to come back to where they started. Put enough in the sky in random directions, and you'll get one back eventually. So we'd want to launch our nuclear waste deep into space, which means we need even bigger rockets that would be even more expensive. Not that we would be completely safe then. Earth might run into these interplanetary caskets at some time in the far future and experience a pretty meteor shower made from radioactive dust. Okay, how about we shoot it into the sun? Ironically, the sun is pretty hard to hit. While the sun has very strong gravity, everything on Earth is moving with respect to the sun, including the rockets that we launch, meaning a rocket would have to cancel out all the orbital motion it has around the sun so it can stop orbiting and fall in. Because of this, it's actually easier to launch a rocket entirely out of the solar system than it is to launch it into the sun. But to do either of these things, we need even bigger rockets, probably the biggest we've ever built. Nothing works. The thing is, it gets even worse. Problem 3, rockets go brrrr.
Rockets go boom.
Rocket engineering has taken huge steps since the Apollo era. We've made them relatively safe. We've mostly replaced the toxic explosive cancer fuels of the past decades with much saner mixes of liquid oxygen and hydrogen or kerosene. The newest designs even land themselves so that they can be reused. And yet, out of the 146 launches in 2021, there were 11 failures, which means that a sizable number of our rockets carrying high-level radioactive waste would be exploding on the launch pad, or in the worst case, disassembling at high altitude or crashing from hypersonic speeds. Each failure would be at least equivalent to a mini Chernobyl, but instead of being contained under a slab of concrete, spread throughout the atmosphere. Radioactive particles could make their way to faraway places by riding on the winds. Most would fall into the ocean, but some would land on the inhabited parts of the world. They could cover farmlands and get concentrated into our food or enter our water supply, which is, well, bad.
Yeah.
Imagine regular large-scale nuclear disasters happening. People wouldn't be happy.
No.
Conclusion and opinion part.
Imagine what would happen if every person in the United States suddenly visited your website.
Shut up.
Would it crash?
I would love
Nuclear waste is scary, but the fear of it and horrible ideas like shooting it into space reveals how bad we are at understanding risk. Because the largest amounts of radioactive elements like uranium and radon are actually released by coal. Burning millions of tons of coal each year leaves ash as a waste product that includes about 36,000 tons of radioactive materials.
Oh.
Less radioactive than high-level nuclear waste, but there's also a lot more of it, and it's handled way less carefully. Some of this ash is caught by filters, but most is simply pushed back into leaky mines, shoved into piles exposed to the wind, or poured into ponds that regularly spill into rivers and lakes. Living within 1.6 kilometers of an ash pile, increases your cancer risk up to 2,000 times over the acceptable limit.
Damn.
And this is on top of other toxic chemicals like heavy metals and, of course, their massive CO2 emissions.
I live next to.
And yet, while nuclear energy is flawed and its current form may only be a transitory technology, nuclear power plants are a harder sell than coal. Nuclear waste and the lack of willingness to deal with it are a real issue. It's not insurmountable, though. There are good methods to handle it, like burying it deep underground or reprocessing some of it into new fuel. But however we ultimately deal with this issue, we hope one thing is clear. Shooting nuclear waste into space is one of the worst ideas ever. Researching this crazy thing, conducting all of these important tests, and of course, creating this video took us around 2,000 hours, which is insane for a YouTube video. And we couldn't do it without you. If you like what you just saw, you can continue your science journey with one of our products. They're true pieces of Kurzgesagt you can take home and touch. And they're the best way
That's
to
my
support
personal
this
advice,
channel,
it's good.
like our
Go buy
limited
it.
edition Human Era calendar
cares
that will
about
bring you a whole year of joy.
Go buy them.
Learn more about the world with our carefully
I will
researched
openly
infographic
support
posters,
those guys.
get our habit and gratitude journals to improve your
But
life.
anyway, yeah, I was gonna say after this ended, which is kind of already is, but that there was a way that I heard of a way that they could repurpose, like, reuse the fuel for the nuclear stuff. And that they were researching into it. I never got the full scoop of what happened to that. Like, I was always like, oh, well, nuclear energy sounds like the best thing ever, but I would imagine it would be very expensive to do that, and that's why it's not like the miracle solution,
I need to find
Still,
the
it
best
is a way
to
to get
learn
rid of
math and
it.
science.
So,
Supernovae are the most powerful explosions in the universe, unleashing enough energy to outshine galaxies. We have no real metaphor for their power. If the sun were to magically go supernova, it would feel like you were being hit by the energy of a nuclear explosion every second for weeks. While supernovae are the engines of creation, forging the elements that enable life, they also burn sterile whole regions of galaxies. So what would happen if one hit Earth?
I think that's what would happen. We would die.
There are, roughly speaking, two ways to make a supernova. Either the core of a massive star implodes, or, less common, a white dwarf gains mass to the point where it ignites explosive nuclear fusion. The outcome is the same, a supernova explosion. When we think of an explosion on Earth, we think of something that happens fast and ends. But a supernova is more like a volcanic eruption followed by a tsunami. At first, there's a colorful ball of hot, expanding gas, creating a spectacular cloud that will shine for about a month. But then, it doesn't stop. Hot and dangerous gas rushes outwards at speeds of 10,000 kilometers a second through the near vacuum of space, sweeping up the sparse gas of the galaxy. This wall of gas expands for tens of thousands of years and will eventually span up to dozens of light years until it finally cools off and disperses its substance back into the galaxy. So what if this star tsunami hits us? Well, the damage depends on how far away it is. Stage 1, thousands of light years away. Humans have witnessed dozens of supernovae, but all of them were thousands of light years away. They appeared as new stars, some outshining the moon, twinkling for a few weeks and disappearing. Aside from looking very pretty at this distance, they don't do much to us. Stage 2, 300 light years away. Things begin to get a bit icky once a supernova occurs around 300 light years away. We can expect one this close to us every few million years. A single star giving the night sky an eerie glow like twilight. And while this is far enough away and dim enough to not do harm to us, years. A single star giving the night sky an eerie glow like twilight. And while this is far enough away and dim enough to not do harm to us, they can affect the Earth. At these distances, it's like being hit by the last weak waves of the star tsunami. Not strong enough to do real damage, but still noticeable. In fact, we know that over the past 10 million years, multiple supernovae have struck Earth from these distances, because we can find radioactive isotopes of iron deep in the rocks and sediments at the bottom of the ocean. Amazingly, these supernovae around the solar system have cleared a 1,000 light-year wide pocket of space that's called the local bubble. They blew away the interstellar gas and dust, creating a lumpy wall of gas that's now a cradle for star formation. Stage 3, 150 light-years away. Once a supernova happens much closer than 300 light-years, we're approaching the zone where it does real damage. Stars have extremely powerful magnetic fields. When they die, the tsunami of dead star actually retains a lot of this magnetic energy woven through the shockwave that expands outwards. In this highly magnetized cloud, we get conditions like in a huge particle accelerator that's accelerating charged particles like protons, nuclei, and electrons to immense speeds, which means we have an expanding cloud that is shooting deadly radiation in all directions long after the bright light from the initial explosion has faded away. If a supernova happens too close by, waves of these cosmic rays will wash over the solar system for thousands of years. While we're mostly protected on Earth's surface by the atmosphere and ozone layer, the influx of extra radiation will still increase cancer and mutation rates. Not enough to cause a mass extinction, but it will be noticeable. Spaceflight would become impossible in the solar system as astronauts wouldn't survive the waves of radiation for long. We don't know exactly how bad this would be, but a supernova that is close enough may trap our species on Earth for generations, maybe thousands of years. It only gets worse from here. Stage 4, closer than 100 light-years. Within 100 light-years, things get bad, as a supernova disrupts our climate in ways that we don't fully understand yet. There are a few unpleasant things happening all one after another. First, the high-energy photons arrive from the explosion, followed by many decades of radiation from the radioactive tsunami, both of which seriously damage the ozone layer, Earth's shield against harmful radiation. The ozone layer absorbs ultraviolet radiation by breaking apart ozone, O3, into O2 and a free oxygen atom, which later reforms back into another ozone molecule. But the supernova radiation breaks up nitrogen molecules that gobble up the free oxygen, breaking the cycle and depleting the ozone layer quickly. Without a radiation shield, everybody living on the surface is exposed to very high levels of UV radiation from our sun. Cancer rates would skyrocket, and just going outside during the day could be life-threatening. The extra radiation would also kill a lot, if not most, of the plankton in the oceans that live near the surface and are the basis for the marine food chains, leading to a mass extinction. Worse still, supernova radiation would ionize gas in the atmosphere, which means that it would punch through molecules and knock electrons off nuclei, leaving them charged. These charged nuclei then act as seeds for water vapor to gather and form massive global clouds. In the worst case, they would reflect enough sunlight to trigger an ice age. In fact, it's thought that the ice age 2.5 million years ago was caused by a supernova. Some scientists even think that a supernova about 60 light-years away might have been the cause of the Devonian mass extinction 350 million years ago. But wait, there's more. The electrons punched free by the radiation form enormous electric avalanches, or in other words, lightning. Earth is hit by some of the worst thunderstorms in millions of years. The intense lightning causes global wildfires that consume forests and crops, devastate cities, disrupt our electrical grids and global supply chains, all while a decimated ozone layer leaks deadly radiation. While in the past the ecosystem may have bounced back from a nearby supernova after a few thousand or million years, there's no guarantee modern civilization can take a hit of this magnitude. We would face food shortages, skyrocketing prices, and wars as nations struggle to not be consumed by chaos. So a supernova this close would at the very least do significant damage for hundreds or thousands of years, if not end our modern civilization, and with it millions or even billions of lives. Still, humanity would likely survive and could recover. Stage 5, closer than 25 light-years.
No,
A supernova closer than 25 light-years means that we're in its kill radius, where a mass extinction is all but guaranteed. Probably about half of the ozone layer would be destroyed, and massive climatic disruption on a scale we've never witnessed would ravage Earth. Entire ecosystems would swiftly be wiped out by radiation as global wildfires envelop the planet. All the things described before happen, but way more intensely and much faster. A few people might survive for years in bunkers if they have food supplies, but the world they return to will be devastated and hostile to life for hundreds of thousands of years. Human extinction is extremely likely.
Yeesh. Stay in the bunker, bro. Stay in the bunker. Freeze yourself.
The final stage, 4 light years. Being any closer to a supernova is very unlikely because space is big, but the effects would be extreme. Even from 4 light years away,
About supernovas and at what distance they would kill us. But how are you doing?
the distance to Alpha Centauri, a supernova would be almost as bright as the sun in the sky. While casting 2 shadows could be fun for a few hours, within days the Earth's surface gets as hot as a sauna, baking the surface for weeks until the explosion fades. The surface of Earth burns, scoured of life. Even the oceans aren't safe. The massive amount of radiation that follows burns away the ozone layer, killing everything that sees sunlight. It would be the largest extinction event in history, reducing life to a few survivors in the deep sea and critters in the deep soil. Life basically has to start over.
I mean...
Conclusion. How worried do you need to be?
Right.
So, should you worry?
Cool, though.
No.
You know,
Fortunately,
like, as
there
long as
are
you weren't
only a
being
handful of stars that may explode within 1,000 light-years of Earth, and none are close enough to be a serious threat. Even better, these stars will probably not go supernova for many millions of years. So you are safe. But there's no guarantee for the far future. As stars orbit the galaxy, our descendants may find themselves dangerously close to a supernova. But by then, a far more advanced and wiser humanity will hopefully be able to just move out of the way. In any case, you can sleep well tonight, under the beautiful night sky.
But
And-
I want to show you something. So like supernovas are cool and all, right? Like supernovas are cool and all, and they look like this, right? Like, you know, and they're exploding from stars and stuff, and it's all pretty cool, right? But I'm just saying, bro, if you could, would you want to live in a nebula? Because me personally, I would live in a nebula. Just be in a planet in here, even though it's probably unlivable. This is not real, but whatever. Like, these things are cool. There's a bunch of gas and matter and whatever. That's cool. That's cool. That's cool stuff. Ooh, what's this? I don't think I've watched this one. The Final Border.
Is there a border we will never cross? Are there places we will never reach, no matter how hard we try? It turns out there are. Even with sci-fi technology, we are trapped in a limited pocket of the universe and the finite stuff within it. How much universe is there for us, and how far can we go?
But see, I imagine we
If
can
you look
reach
at the
our
night
galaxy.
sky, you might assume it will be there forever. Stars are born and die again in a cycle that feels endless. But it's not. Take the Milky Way, up to 200,000 light-years in diameter, containing some 100 to 400 billion stars. How many stars do you think are born here each year? Thousands? Millions? The answer is around 3.
Oh shit.
3 new stars per year. 95% of all the stars that will ever exist in the universe have already been born, and we live at the tail end of the age of star formation. We are at the beginning of the end of the universe as we know it. The formation of new stars will continue to slow down. But there's more. It turns out that the universe is rushing away from us. The Milky Way is not alone. Together with the Andromeda Galaxy and more than 50 dwarf galaxies, it forms the Local Group, a region of space about 10 million light-years in diameter, our galactic neighborhood. Hundreds of galaxy groups like the Local Group make up the Laniakea supercluster, which itself is only one of a myriad of superclusters.
God.
In total, there are around 2 trillion galaxies that make up the current observable universe.
Now I feel...
Unfortunately, even if we could travel at light speed, around 94% of the galaxies we can see are already unreachable for us forever. Let this number sink in for a moment. The simple fact that there's a limit for us and that there is so much universe that a human will never be able to touch is kind of frightening. Why are all of these galaxies out of reach already? Well, it all has to do with why there are galaxies in the first place, the Big Bang. We're simplifying here, but in a nutshell, about 10 to the power of minus 36 seconds after the Big Bang, the young universe was a very small bubble of energy. It wasn't completely uniform though. Some parts of it were a tiny, tiny bit denser than others, which had massive consequences. In a process called cosmic inflation, the observable universe expanded.
I'm just saying, like, for the USA, our current inflation, I would call that cosmic inflation.
Rapidly, from the size of a marble to trillions of kilometers in a trillionth of a second. That was so fast that all those tiny differences in density were stretched from subatomic distances into galactic distances, which is why the whole universe consists of more and less dense regions. Pockets of the universe filled with a bit more stuff than the space around them. After that short but powerful inflation ended, gravity began trying to pull everything back together. Inside the denser pockets, gravity emerged victorious, and so over time, they grew into groups of galaxies like the one we live in today. The local group is our pocket of the universe. But at larger scales outside the denser pockets, the expansion of space never stopped. This means that our local group is surrounded by a lot of stuff, but none of those structures and galaxies are gravitationally bound to us. The more the universe expands, the larger the distance between us and the other gravitational pockets becomes.
So because there's more because the universe is expanding, basically the table is getting wider, so stuff on the table gets farther away.
Even worse for us, the expansion of the universe is accelerating. We don't know why this happens, so we came up with the concept of dark energy. You can imagine it like an invisible effect that speeds up the expansion of the universe. We'll explain these concepts in more detail in another video though. For now, all you need to know is that the universe is expanding faster and faster. This expansion means that there's a cosmological horizon around us. Everything beyond it is traveling faster relative to us than the speed of light. So everything that passes the horizon is irretrievably out of reach forever, and we will never be able to interact with it again. In a sense, it's like a black...
Oh, because it's going faster than the speed of light, and we can't go faster than the speed of light. I see. Because it's passing a certain...
hole's event horizon, but all around us. 94% of the galaxies we can see today have already passed it and are lost to us forever. Wait, if we can't interact with them, how come we can still see them?
94%?
Brain HQ is a brain training program with online exercises that target core cognitive skills, like attention, processing speed, and memory.
Observable,
not
not the universe, just the observable universe.
Well, the way we're able to see something is via light. And although the speed of light is the fastest way to travel through the universe, it needs time to get from one place to another. Every second, light reaches us from trillions of galaxies that have passed the horizon because when their light was emitted, they were much closer to us. We are looking at their ancient past and see their ancient positions. So the observable universe is much larger than the universe we can actually interact with. In a sense, the universe is pulling off a great show for us, showing us things that are out of reach forever. We have no idea what these galaxies look like today, and we will never know. But we will be able to observe them for a long time as their light hits our telescopes. Interestingly, this means that currently the observable universe still appears to be growing as more and more light released by super distant galaxies billions of years ago is arriving at our doorsteps. Still, all the pockets of the universe outside the local group will one day pass our cosmological horizon. Once they do, their light won't be able to reach us anymore, and from our perspective, they will fade away into darkness. Every second of your life, 60,000 stars pass the horizon. Since you started watching this video, around 22 million stars have moved out of our reach forever. Okay, but if 94% of the observable universe is beyond the cosmic horizon and gone forever, that still leaves us with 6% that is technically in reach, which is still a ton of stuff. All the galaxy pockets that are less than 18 billion light-years away. They are still moving away, but slow enough that we could physically reach them, although the chances are shrinking with every second that passes. Everything that's more than around 5 million light-years away is moving away from us. But the closest galaxy groups are receding the slowest, so there is a time window to jump galaxy groups. The challenge is extreme though, even for Type 3 civilizations. Even at the speed of light, a trip to the Maphite group, the closest pocket of galaxies outside the local group, would take 11 million years. If some sort of super-motivated, super-advanced civilization takes this challenge on, its potential sphere of influence could expand to hundreds or thousands of galaxies. Although,
and it wouldn't make sense for them to be at war with each other, because they'd just be so far away.
Time passes and the universe grows, they would be separated forever. It's pretty safe to assume that humans will not make this journey, at least not with technologies that are even remotely on the horizon. For us, the local group is most likely the largest structure that we will ever be a part of. Just traveling between the stars would be an achievement of epic proportions. We would already be incredibly successful if we were to colonize our cosmic backyard, which accounts for 0.00000000001% of the observable universe. As dark energy pushes the rest of the universe away from us, the local group will become more tightly bound. All its galaxies, big and small, will merge together to form one giant elliptical galaxy with the unoriginal name Milkdromeda in a few billion years. This process might even smash huge gas clouds together and re-spark star formation for some time. And this new light will be very welcome because at some point the galaxies outside Milkdromeda will be so far away that they become too faint to detect. Once this happens, no information outside of the local group will reach us ever again. The universe will recede from view. A being born in the far future in Milkdromeda will think that the universe consists of nothing but its own galaxy. When they look far into empty space, they will only see more emptiness and darkness. They won't see cosmic background radiation, and they won't be able to learn about the Big Bang. They may have no way of knowing what we know today, the nature of the expanding universe, when it began, and how it will end. They might think the universe is static and eternal. Milkdromeda will be an island in the darkness, slowly getting darker and darker. Still, with its trillion stars, the local group is certainly a big enough playground to entertain humanity for a while. After all, we still haven't figured out how to leave our solar system, and we have dozens of billions of years at the very least to explore our galaxy. And we have the incredible luck to exist at the perfect moment in time to see not only our future, but also our most distant past just by looking into the night sky. As isolated as the local group is, it is our home. And it really is a spectacular place. Time for some behind-the-scenes content.
Man, never have I been so affected by something that does not affect me. That is really depressing. So I know you came in like at the end. So basically, right? Okay, I'm with the videos.
But there's more. It turns out that the universe is...
So basically, what we see in the night sky, right, and like, with no light pollution and all that, we won't be able to get there because, as the universe is expanding, it's pulling stuff farther away from each other. And there's only a set amount of stuff like we'll be able to get to. I think this is it right here. And eventually one day the our entire night sky will just go completely dark because the light has reached us and the stuff will just be so it'll pass the event horizon. And let's see, we can see about
all around us. 94% of the is traveling faster relative to us than the speed of light. So everything that passes the horizon is irretrievably out of reach forever, and we will never be able to interact with it again. In a sense, it's like a black hole's event horizon, but all around us. 94% of the galaxies we can see today have already passed it and are lost to us forever. Wait.
Yeah, it's that's depressing. That's depressing. All right, what? Actually, which one do you want to do? We got alien scale, because I've been choosing the last few. Mind upload, string theory, the egg, death from space, dark energy, deep sea, life energy, stellar engine, asteroid mining. Here's why you're immune against every disease. That sucks for my great grandkids. Exactly. Like, it's just I've never been so affected by something that does not affect me. It's crazy. Terraform Venus, alien horror. As a Mexican, I can inform you that we can definitely cross any border. Oh wait, a mistake at the end of the video?
Work transparent. We can't avoid making mistakes from time to time, but we can work hard on getting better. And this video kept bugging us. So, we finally decided to replace it, not just re-upload, but remake it better and longer and add fun universe facts to make it worthwhile. Sorry for taking so long. We'll leave the old video up, but pin a comment.
So that's like
I need to find the best way to learn math and science.
Shut.
The universe is incredibly big and seems full of potential for life, with billions of habitable planets. If an advanced civilization had the technology to travel between the stars at just 0.1% of the speed of light, it could colonize our galaxy in roughly 100 million years. Which is not that long given the billions of years the Milky Way has existed. So, in principle, any spacefaring civilization should be able to spread rapidly over huge sectors of the galaxy. And yet, we see nothing, hear nothing. The universe seems empty, devoid of others. This is the Fermi paradox, which we've discussed in more detail in other videos. Confronted with the seemingly empty universe, humanity faces a dilemma. We desperately want to know if we are alone in the Milky Way. We want to call out and reveal ourselves to anyone watching, but that could be the last thing we ever do. Because maybe the universe is not empty. Maybe it's full of civilizations, but they are hiding from each other. Maybe the civilizations that attracted attention in the past were wiped away by invisible arrows. This is the dark forest solution to the Fermi paradox.
So basically, they would kill us.
The way of life. The hunter awakes in his hiding place and carefully listens for suspicious noises from the thick undergrowth before he gets up. Another night has passed without incident. The forest is dark and full of fog. He considers calling out to others to end his loneliness, but stops himself at the last moment. What if they are like him? All living things seek to survive, secure resources, and multiply. Their greatest obstacle are other living things that share the same objective. Competition between species favored the survival of beings with advantageous traits. Our ancestors were inventive, competitive, expansionist, and greedy for resources, which led them to winning the competition for our planet. Today, most other animals are so utterly at our mercy that we wipe out about a dozen species a day, just as an unintentional byproduct of how we like to run things. But humans are more than individuals. From us, cultures emerge that also compete with each other. Competitive and expansionary cultures spread faster and further and merge with, subdue, or destroy others. If we look at our history, it becomes clear we are dangerous. Not just to others, but also to ourselves. Our human nature has driven us to take over every corner of our planet, and soon we will look to the stars, both to expand our domain and ensure access to ever more resources. and then we might stumble upon others trying to do the same thing. It's likely that the competition of life also takes place on faraway planets, so it's logical to assume that an alien civilization that came to dominate their planet would be in some regards similar to us. But if they're similar to us, they too may be dangerous. The implication. As the hunter sneaks through the dark forest all alone, he knows that there might be others like him. He can't know their intentions, if they are aggressive or not. The hunter knows he would kill to ensure his own survival, so he has to assume that they would too. And it might be that if he stumbles upon another hunter, the one that shoots first survives. None of this means that conflict is unavoidable. So far, the progress of the modern world seems to have made us more peaceful, not more violent. Maybe this is true for other civilizations too, that eventually progress means less conflict, not more. Different alien civilizations also should vary from the mild and peaceful to the malevolent and militaristic. The existential problem we're facing is that when we meet others between the stars, we have no way of telling who is peaceful or aggressive and what their true intentions are. Similarly, they might not understand or trust our intentions even if we tell them that we are peaceful. On top of that, if we did discover another civilization and they discovered us, the light years between us would mean years of communication delay. Both sides would be in a state of uncertainty, wondering if the wisest move is to just attack because there's another serious issue, technological explosions and the first strike advantage. We don't know where the limits of technology are, but we do know how much technological progress matters in war. A few hundred or thousand years can turn conflict with uncertain results into a one-sided massacre. Caesar's legions would stand no chance against Napoleon's army with their cannons and muskets, which would be eradicated by artillery from the First World War, which would not stand a chance against today's drones and guided missiles. So the power level of different civilizations may vary massively, and even if not, between the time it takes us to detect another civilization and us saying hi, we might already be hopelessly behind on the tech tree. Which is bad enough, but the nature of interstellar conflict makes this worse. If your opponent is light years away, sending an invasion fleet takes so long that by the time it arrives, it might be hopelessly obsolete. So war between civilizations might be just about eliminating the other to remove an existential threat to yourself. Someone else who might be so scared of you that they attack the first chance they get. In this environment, the only way to guarantee a win is to strike with such force and speed that the target has no chance of survival or time to counterattack or escape to seek revenge later. The stakes are the highest possible, with no room for error. If we assume that the majority of civilizations live on planets, that leaves them pretty vulnerable. All you need to do is throw something massive at a planet to make it uninhabitable. So the ultimate interplanetary annihilation weapon is probably something like a relativistic kill vehicle, a missile shot at a planet at a significant fraction of the speed of light. For example, a missile the size of a person going 95% the speed of light has as much energy as all nuclear bombs on Earth. If you shot a few dozen at the civilization you wanted to wipe out, success would be fairly certain. Even a single hit would suffice. This is not that absurd of an idea. A civilization only slightly above us on the Kardashev scale would have enough energy to send multiple strikes against every planet it suspects of harboring life. What makes these weapons so sinister is how much they favor a first strike, since they would be so fast that it might be impossible to protect yourself effectively against them once they're launched.
America's largest
so a weapon could be coming right now.
Conflict between civilizations may not be lengthy affairs, but rapid winner-takes-all situations, where the first one to shoot wins. This makes any civilization an existential threat to any other. And if every civilization is an existential threat to every other, there may be only two kinds of civilizations out there. quiet ones, and dead ones. So, what should we do? Should we worry? It's unlikely that anybody has noticed humanity yet. The radio signals we've transmitted in the last 100 years traveled a relatively tiny distance and have long decayed into unreadable noise. At our technological stage, if we don't actively try to get noticed, and if nobody specifically looks at our pretty unremarkable solar system, we'll stay hidden. But one day we will venture into space in a serious way and need to consider these kinds of questions again. We don't know if there are others or if we are going through the forest alone. But we have no way of knowing for sure. For the time being, it seems the best we can do is to carefully listen. And even if we see others step into a clearing and make themselves known, we should not reply right away, but carefully watch them from the undergrowth. Perhaps we are also thinking about this all wrong by allowing our primitive brain that evolved in the context of the gruesome competition of life to conjure fears of predatory aliens all around us. Maybe the fact that we are looking at the universe like this is a sign that we are not grown up yet as a species. There could be a friendly, welcoming community of alien civilizations waiting to hear from us when we are ready. As for now, the good news is there is actually little we need to do. We just need to be thoughtful about the signals we send out into the galaxy. We need to watch the sky and learn more about our galaxy, our forest. Because whatever the nature of our forest is, full of dangers or friends, or nobody at all, only careful observation can tell. So, let's do that. At last, the hunter reaches a clearing and finds a comfortable position. Slowly, the sun melts the fog away. Lost in thought, he admires the vegetation until suddenly he is eye to eye with another hunter, frozen in terror just like himself. His mind is racing, considering all the different options. The hunter takes a deep breath and makes a decision. Maybe the only way out of the dark forest is to step into the clearing together. And with this hopeful picture, we say goodbye to the year 12,021 of the human era. It was a wild year to say the least, still much more fun than 12,020. Kurzgesagt had its most successful month.
I'm gonna ask Jedi Order for his assistance. Well, exactly. Just ask the Jedi Order. They'll know. But the thing about the Jedi Order is that at that level of civilization, it wouldn't matter because I think the Dark Forest thing only applies to civilizations that are still like relative like they're only like planetary or they're only like a few planets or so. You know? Like they have a few planets and that's it. But if they're like a galactic civilization, I think, I think stuff like that's pretty easy. But yeah, this is interesting. Very interesting. Let's watch this one. It's my turn to choose.
If you had to choose right now, how long would you want to live?
100.
80 years? 90?
100.
120?
No.
Longer?
No.
And do you think you'll change your mind once you reach that age?
Probably not.
50,000 years ago, most humans died very young. As we learned how to use the resources around us to treat ourselves, this got better and better. Today, humans are living longer and healthier lives than ever before. But this has an unforeseen consequence. We spend an ever-increasing part of our lives being sick and in need of care. Most of us will die in a hospital bed, which is depressing enough by itself, but we also have to witness the same happening to our loved ones. Except, maybe, we can stop this forever. The most effective way to treat a disease is to prevent it. It saves many more lives if you stop 1 million people from smoking than coming up with better chemotherapies. So why not put a halt to the cause of all disease, the process of aging? In a nutshell, aging is caused by physics and not biology. Think of cars. Parts wear down from rubbing and grinding. metal rusts, filters get plugged, rubber cracks. Our bodies are worn down by trillions of tiny physical processes. Oxygen, radiation from the sun, our metabolism. Our bodies have many mechanisms to repair this damage, but over time they become less effective. So our bones and muscles weaken, our skin wrinkles, our immune system gets weaker. We lose our memory and our senses diminish. There's no such thing as dying of old age. We all die because one of our important parts breaks. The older we get, the more damaged and fragile we become until one or multiple diseases take over and kill us. Unnoticed by most of us, longevity research has made some unprecedented advances in the last few years. For the first time, we're starting to understand the mechanisms behind aging and how to manipulate them. Aging is neither mystical nor inevitable, and we might be able to stop or delay it during your lifetime. We'll discuss the science behind it and how scientists are trying to stop it in another video. But first, if we could, should we end aging? Is this a good idea? The end of aging or life extension makes many people uncomfortable. We're born, are young, become older, and then we die. This has been the natural order for literally all of human history. And getting old is a good thing, right?
Somewhat.
We celebrate the idea of living long enough to experience old age. We even call them the golden years. But the reality is that everybody wants to become old, but nobody wants to be old. Think of the Greek myth of Tithonus, for example.
Oh, Greek myth.
Tithonus was the lover of the goddess Eos, and probably an amazing dude because she begged Zeus to grant him immortality so they could spend eternity together. But she forgot to specifically ask for eternal youth. Tithonus was granted eternal life, but he kept aging, unable to die. After a few hundred years, he was reduced to the size of a grape, babbling on senselessly forever. Thousands of years ago, humans already feared never-ending old age. But ending aging does not mean getting weaker and weaker. If you become too old, it's too late. A 90-year-old who stopped aging would die anyway after a few years. Too much damage has been done to his internal machinery. There are already too many surfaces for disease to attack. Instead, the concept of life extension promises to end diseases and with them, the end of a fixed maximum age. We don't know how much we could prolong our lives. We might make every human healthy to the currently accepted maximum age of around 120, or we might stop biological aging and disease indefinitely. Nobody knows at this point what's possible. Okay, but even if we could achieve that, should we? Well, life extension is really just another phrase for medicine. All the doctors are doing is trying to prolong life and minimize suffering. The vast majority of healthcare resources are spent on the consequences of aging. Nearly half of your lifetime healthcare costs will be spent during your senior years and another third during middle age. We are actually already trying to prolong life with our current medicine, we're just doing it very inefficiently. Trying to stop aging from happening is not less natural than transplanting a heart, treating cancer with chemotherapy, using antibiotics or vaccines. Nothing humans do nowadays is purely natural anymore, and we enjoy the highest standard of living ever as a consequence of that. What we're doing right now is waiting until it's too late and the machine is failing. And then we use the vast majority of our resources trying to fix it as well as we can, while it breaks down even further. But life extension still feels hubristic. Most people assume that they will want to die once they reach a certain age, and this might still be true. The idea of avoiding death entirely is off-putting for many. The end of biological aging would not mean the end of death in any way. It's more like a summer evening when you were a kid and your mum called you inside. You just wanted to keep playing, have a little more fun during sunset before you went to sleep. It's not about playing outside forever, just a little longer until we feel tired. If you imagine a world without disease where you and your loved ones could live in good health for another 100 or 200 years, how would this change us? Would we take better care of our planet if we knew we would be around longer? If we could work for 150 years, how much time would we spend figuring out what we're good at? How much more time would we spend learning? Would the intense feeling of pressure and stress many of us are feeling right now go away or get worse? So, asking again, if you could choose how long to live right now, in good health and with your friends and family, What's your personal answer? What would you like your future to look like?
But maybe you're still unconvinced. Some nagging feeling remains. That is the Reaper whispering into your brain. Watch my video to hear what he says and why you shouldn't listen.
All right, yeah. I mean, we can watch that, or, you know, if you want to watch something else. Cure aging, beauty, why beautiful things make us happy. Emergence, we lied to you. It will do it again. Skyhook, so I see the brain collapse movies. I think that's interesting, though. I mean, me personally, I think I would. Just because I want to be at the very best, at the top of my game for the rest of my life. And then one day, that'd be scary though, wouldn't it? Because think about it, like, you know, let's say you have a friend, right, that you've known since middle school. You're like 170 years in, right? You know, you're just sitting next to each other, you know, playing sports or whatever, right? And then he just says to you, hey, my time's coming. You know? Like you know, like you would expect that kind of talk from like an old person. But if you're like 195 and you look like you're 25 and it's just like, hey man, you know, I can feel it. It's almost time. You know, I feel like, I mean, I think that would be interesting. Like I would, but because the benefits would be a lot. But is it really worth it? I'm not sure. That's interesting. But which one do you want? Let's see. You got why die, cure aging, beauty, blah blah blah. Soon moonbase, optimistic nihilism. What are you? End of space. Marijuana, overpopulation, quantum computer, nuclear death, human era, bacteria. How large can that bacteria get? Gold apocalypse, ancient aliens, consciousness. Origin of it, war on drugs, it's a huge failure. Mind upload, homeopathy, what dinosaurs actually look like, dark energy, life energy, the egg, what is life, nicocysty, war over, organic, meat unhealthy, plastic pollution, Dyson sphere, GMO, universal basic income, electric smog, could your phone hurt you? Tail end, size of life, are you real? How Facebook is stealing billions of views. Here's why die? And remove the sum from a paradox intelligence. We watched that one. I'm not sure if we watched that one. Interesting. Are you real? Okay.
I think what we have here in Hollywood is high art.
Who wants to see me fight a snake?
Would you want to live
humans
forever? Well,
are
not
unable
forever,
to
but
experience.
Would you want to spend, like, never get old and just spend the rest of your life at your peak performance?
Experience the true nature of the universe unfiltered. Our senses and brains can only process a fraction of the world. So we have to use concepts and tools to learn about the true nature of reality. Technological progress not only widened our knowledge about the universe, it also made us aware of unsettling possibilities. In the future, it might become possible to simulate entire universes. But if this is an option, how can we know that
It's like I don't know what I would choose. Like I know the option isn't going to be presented to me like now or even maybe in my lifetime, but you know, I'm not sure what I would choose if the option was presented for me.
it's not already happened?
But I think I would say
What if we are not creators, but creations? Is it possible that we are not real and we don't even know it?
Are we a simulation?
If our current understanding of physics is correct, then it's impossible to simulate the whole universe with its trillions and trillions of things. But we don't actually need to anyway. We only need enough universe to fool the inhabitants of our simulation into thinking that they're real. Who needs billions of galaxies? We only need the space our subjects are allowed to explore.
The vast universe could just...
The event horizon. Interesting.
Be a flat projection, and they would have no way to know.
What about small things like cells or bacteria? We don't really need them. When you use a microscope, what you see could be instantly created. Same with atoms. The chair you're sitting on right now does not need to be simulated with quadrillions of atoms. We just need the outermost layer of it. It might be empty inside until you decide to break it open. Your body might feel like it's filled with bubbly things, but it might be empty until you open it. The minimum requirement for our simulation is only the consciousness of our virtual humans. Our subjects just need to think the simulation is real. Okay, so are we being simulated? Well, maybe, but there are a few conditions that need to be met. Obviously, we have no authority over this topic, so please take everything we say with a grain of salt. Based on a modified version of the original simulation argument by Nick Bostrom, we have 5 assumptions for you. If they're true, you, dear viewer, are living in a simulation.
Wake up.
Assumption 1. It's possible to simulate consciousness. Nobody knows what consciousness is. For the sake of argument, let's assume that you could generate consciousness by simulating a brain. Brains are pretty complex.
If you count every interaction between synapses as one operation, your brain runs at about 10 to the power of 17, or 100 million billion operations per second. Let's generously assume we need 10 to the power of 20 operations to simulate 1 second of human consciousness. But we don't want to simulate just one human, we want to simulate all of human history at once so we can skip around. Let's say we want to simulate 200 billion humans with an average lifespan of 50 years. 1 year has 30 million seconds times 50 years times 200 billion humans times 10 to the power of 20 operations.
So we need a computer able to handle 1,000,000 trillion operations per second. More operations than there are stars in the observable universe. A computer like this is just impossible. Except maybe it isn't. Assumption 2. Technological progress will not stop anytime soon. If we assume that technological progress continues in a similar fashion as it has so far, then there might be galaxy-spanning civilizations with unlimited computer power at some point. Beings on a technology level so advanced that we could barely distinguish them from gods. A computer that can handle...
Well, yeah, but then, you know, assuming that we are a simulation, and assuming that, like, you know, like, we are in that simulation, and we are, you know, part of this advanced civilization, why would we want to go back? Are we just bored? I don't know.
1,000,000 trillion operations is serious business, but there are actually concepts for computers which could handle this. The Matryoshka brain is a theoretical megastructure made up of billions of parts orbiting a star feeding on its radiation. A computer of this scale would have enough power to simulate many thousands, if not millions, of humanities at the same time. Other technologies, like high-end future quantum computers, might lower the size drastically, so it might be possible to do this with a structure the size of a large city, or even smaller. But only if there's still someone around to build the computer.
Symphony is your video streaming platform with unlimited access to the world's finest orchestras. Get your
Assumption 3. Advanced civilizations don't destroy themselves. If there is a point at which all civilizations destroy themselves, this whole discussion ends here. Looking into space, you'd expect a universe filled with millions of alien civilizations, but we see nobody. The reason for this might be great filters. Great filters are barriers life has to overcome, like nuclear war, asteroids, climate change, or a black hole generator. If life is inherently self-destructive, then there are no simulations. We explain this in more detail in our Fermi Paradox video. Assumption 4. Super advanced civilizations want to run simulations. When we speak of post-human civilizations, we don't know what we're dealing with. To think we know what beings as powerful as gods want is pretty arrogant. Imagine the smartest ant on Earth living next to an amusement park. It's curious about what humans are up to, so you try to explain. Unfortunately, the ant just doesn't understand. The concept of roller coasters and standing in lines and holidays and fun doesn't make sense to an ant living an ant life. It's the same with us and a post-human being. Compared to them, we are ants. Running simulations for fun or science might be an absurdly stupid idea to them. But if they do want to run simulations for whatever reasons, and assumptions 1 to 3 are true too, then the chances are not zero that you are living inside a simulation. Assumption 5. If there are a lot of simulations, you are probably inside a simulation. If there are simulated civilizations, it's likely that there are a lot of them. After all, we assume that post-human beings have access to practically unlimited computing power. So if they run simulations, it would be convenient to run millions or even billions of them. If there are billions of simulated universes, there are probably trillions and trillions of simulated conscious beings, which would mean that the vast majority of all conscious beings that will ever have existed are simulated. So for every conscious being made of flesh, a billion simulated ones exist.
Since we have no way of knowing if we are simulated or not, in this case, the chances of you being one of the 999,999,999 simulated ones are pretty high. So what you consider reality might not be real at all. You really might be simulated.
All of this is based on a lot of assumptions that we can't really test right now, so many scientists disagree with this whole thought experiment. So don't burn your house down to test if there will be glitches. If you are simulated, not that much changes for you. You might be on a small planet speeding through eternal nothingness, or a simulation inside a computer. Your existence does not become more or less scary and bizarre. All we can hope to do is try to live good lives and have a good time. And hope that if we actually are simulations in a supercomputer, nobody trips over the power cable.
Oh no. I think I just unplugged the simulation. But what if that doesn't matter? What if we are in one right now? What if you...
So, I mean, I really hope I'm not in a simulation, because that means when I die, I'm just gone. I'm just big gone. That would suck. I hope not. However, if I'm in... Well, to be fair, I think that would be morally wrong to simulate consciousness and then to kill it for there just to be nothing. I feel like morals would not allow... Well, if these super beings have morals, they wouldn't allow them to do that. And if there are simulations, that means that, you know, it's just simulations of like flesh and blood and stuff like that. That means when we die, we wake up, which would be better. And also, why the fuck if there are simulations, why the fuck am I stuck in the boring one? Why are we stuck in the boring one? Why is there no magic? Why is there no dragons? Why is there no cool shit? It's dumb. Let's go with this one. I'm curious.
Why should you use Miro? Well, when you draw on a whiteboard, no one sees it. With Miro, you plan together in real time.
A
lot of things can be beautiful. Landscapes, faces, fine art, or epic architecture, stars in the sky, or simply the reflection of the sun on an empty bottle. Beauty is nothing tangible, it only exists in our heads as a pleasant feeling. If we have to define it, we perceive something as beautiful if its color, shape, form, or proportion somehow are appealing or delightful to us. Beauty is a very human experience that's been with us for millions of years. Even our first tools were trimmed to a symmetrical shape. Researchers have tried to find practical reasons why our ancestors invested the time to make their tools look nice, but couldn't really identify any. It seems that early humans shaped their tools into teardrops simply because they liked them better that way. Throughout our history, the definition of beauty has changed a lot. Ideals have shifted or turned into their opposites. But beyond individual and contemporary taste, some things have never really gone out of fashion. The golden ratio, symmetry, or fractal patterns can be found in the art and architecture of cultures from our beginnings to today. Humans seem to be in mysterious inherent agreement about the beauty of certain things. The patterns that keep coming up are all rooted in nature. They became part of our biology because they helped our ancestors survive. Fractal patterns, for example, occur all over nature, in snail shells, flower heads, waves, or clouds. Identifying and assessing these things and phenomena correctly used to be vital. Do those clouds mean rain will come soon? Are these waters safe to swim through? Can I eat this? Another pervasive thing is symmetry. In nature, it means everything is as it should be. Stems and trees and leaves and blossoms all grow symmetrically. A deer with impressive antlers is probably a source of nutritious meat. A deformed wheat ear may not be safe to eat. A symmetrical face is more likely to belong to a healthy and fertile mating partner. Because symmetry is so common in fauna and flora, it's extremely familiar to our brain. It helped our ancestors evaluate their environment more easily and react quickly to danger. Things that help us survive activate the reward center in our brain. Recognizing signals of safety and nutrition trigger nice feelings in us. So our sense of beauty probably evolved from pattern recognition. But it goes way beyond that now. Humans seem to have evolved an instinct for beauty that is deeply hardwired into us. It remains even after other processes in our brain stop working. Alzheimer's patients were asked to rank the beauty of several paintings. Then the experiment was repeated 2 weeks later. The patients had long since forgotten the paintings, but still ranked the beauty of the paintings in the same order. One could argue that this doesn't say much, so what if people stick to their personal preferences? But other research has shown that we have a sort of lowest common denominator when it comes to beauty. In different experiments, people were asked to distinguish real from fake abstract paintings. Some were originals by Mondrian and Pollock that were painted based on strict rules like fractal patterns, while the imitations were not. The majority picked out the original artworks. This worked with paintings from both artists, even though their styles are very different. Another experiment also used abstract art.
Well, okay, abstract painting generally is fine, but like some of them are not fine. Some of them are just, you know what I mean? Because abstract painting, I don't know. Some of them aren't good painters. Some of them just draw
artworks, but asked people to pick them out among similar paintings made either by children or animals. Again, the test subjects pointed out the legit paintings whose patterns were carefully planned and not random. So while we have a hard time pinning down what beauty is or what it's based on, we somehow recognize it when we see it. Humans don't navigate nature trying to survive day by day anymore. We left the natural world behind and created our own. We made the objects that surround us, the things we wear and use and look at. As we spread over the planet and our numbers grew, we shaped a completely man-made environment. In the process of doing so, we often neglected beauty in favor of functionality, cost, or efficiency. We built rows and rows of concrete housing blocks that nobody wants to live in. We have ugly underground subway stations, shabby public service buildings, and sprawling malls. One bland, standardized box beside the next. Humans don't like monotony. Eye tracking software has shown that people keep focusing on details and ornaments of architecture while brushing quickly over blank walls. And not only are they no fun to look at, they actually make us miserable. Experiments with skin sensors showed that looking at vast, dull facades makes us feel bored and uncomfortable. This kind of boredom has been linked to raised heart rates and stress levels. And the opposite seems to be true too. Over the last decades, more and more studies have found that surroundings that are actually aesthetically pleasing to us can improve our well-being, our behavior, cognitive function, and mood. Our bodies and brains react measurably and visibly to everything that surrounds us. Beauty, in particular, has such a strong impact on our well-being that making useful things beautiful can actually make them better. In 2017, a hospital examined recovery factors through observation and interviews with patients and found that visual art in their lounge areas made them more comfortable and happier about their stay in general. Another study looked at how well patients recovered in a hospital that had 2 wards. a very old and rather ugly one, and a newly renovated ward. To the researchers' surprise, the patients that stayed in the new renovated environment needed less pain medication and were released on average 2 days earlier than patients recovering in the old ward. More beautiful surroundings made them feel better physically. Beauty also has an effect on us on a daily basis. It can improve our general happiness. A study that looked at the main factors influencing the happiness of adults revealed an unexpected result. Besides things like good health and a harmonious family life, individual happiness is affected by how beautiful you find the city you live in. Beauty scored even higher than cleanliness or safety. So, what can we learn from all of this? We know that we humans have been fine-tuned for millions of years to process visual input and assess our surroundings. It's just what we're programmed to do, and we're starting to learn more about how much beauty as a property is really influencing us. Beauty meets an inherent need for meaningful information. Maybe it would be worth giving it more space in this man-made world we have created. This video was a collaboration with the creative agency Zagmeister and Walsh.
That's interesting. So I guess just fill your home with paintings and plants and other stuff. And I guess you'll feel better, according to this. Interesting. I live in a shithole. Well, listen, bro. Listen. Just surround yourself with plants. Surround yourself. Alright. Which one do you want? Robot rights? They don't deserve rights. To dissatisfaction. Or homeopathy, quantum computer, optimistic nihilism. Kind of interested in the robot rights. Oh, that's interesting though. So just surround yourself with beauty and things you find neat, and you'll feel better. You'll just overall do better. Robots? Alright.
We know your relationship with the internet can be complicated. It's not always clear if you're safe or your data is private.
Shut up.
Imagine a future where your toaster anticipates what kind of toast you want. During the day, it scans the internet for new and exciting types of toast. Maybe it asks you about your day and wants to chat about new achievements in toast technology. At what level would it become a person? At which point will you ask yourself if your toaster has feelings? If it did, would unplugging it be murder? And would you still own it? Will we someday be forced to give our machines rights?
I do not want to give my washing machine the rights to bear arms.
AI is already all around you. It makes sure discounters are stocked with enough snacks, it serves you up just the right internet ad, and you may have even read a news story written entirely by a machine. Right now, we look at chatbots like Siri and laugh at their primitive simulated emotions, but it's likely that we will have to deal with beings that make it hard to draw the line between real and simulated humanity. Are there any machines in existence that deserve rights? Most likely, not yet. But if they come, we are not prepared for it. Much of the philosophy of rights is ill-equipped to deal with the case of artificial intelligence. Most claims for rights, whether human or animal, are centered around the question of consciousness. Unfortunately, nobody knows what consciousness is. Some think that it's immaterial, others say it's a state of matter like gas or liquid. Regardless of the precise definition, we have an intuitive knowledge of consciousness because we experience it. We're aware of ourselves and our surroundings and know what unconsciousness feels like. Some neuroscientists believe that any sufficiently advanced system can generate consciousness. So if your toaster's hardware was powerful enough, it may become self-aware. If it does, would it deserve rights?
No.
Well, not so fast. Would what we define as rights make sense to it? Consciousness entitles beings to have rights because it gives a being the ability to suffer. It means the ability to not only feel pain, but to be aware of it. Robots don't suffer, and they probably won't unless we program them to. Without pain or pleasure, there's no preference, and rights are meaningless.
No strong feelings.
Our human rights are deeply tied to our own programming. For example, we dislike pain because our brains evolved to keep us alive, to stop us from touching a hot fire, or to make us run away from predators. So we came up with rights that protect us from infringements that cause us pain. Even more abstract rights, like freedom, are rooted in the way our brains are wired to detect what is fair and unfair. Would a toaster that is unable to move mind being locked in a cage? Would it mind being dismantled if it had no fear of death? Would it mind being insulted if it had no need for self-esteem? But what if we programmed a robot to feel pain and emotions? To prefer justice over injustice, pleasure over pain, and be aware of it? Would that make them sufficiently human? Many technologists believe that an explosion in technology will occur when artificial intelligence can learn and create their own artificial intelligences, even smarter human. Many technologists believe that an explosion in technology will occur when artificial intelligence can learn and create their own artificial intelligences, even smarter than themselves. At this point, the question of how robots are programmed will be largely out of our control. What if an artificial intelligence found it necessary to program the ability to feel pain, just as evolutionary biology found it necessary in most living creatures? Do robots deserve those rights? But maybe we should be less worried about the risk that super-intelligent robots pose to us, and more worried about the danger we pose to them. Our whole human identity is based on the idea of human exceptionalism, that we are special, unique snowflakes entitled to dominate the natural world. Humans have a history of denying that other beings are capable of suffering as they do. In the midst of the scientific revolution, René Descartes argued that animals were mere automata, robots if you will. As such, injuring a rabbit was about as morally repugnant as punching a stuffed animal. And many of the greatest crimes against humanity were justified by their perpetrators on the grounds that the victims were more animal than civilized human. Even more problematic is that we have an economic interest in denying robot rights. If we can coerce a sentient AI, possibly through programmed torture, into doing as we please, the economic potential is unlimited. We've done it before, after all. Violence has been used to force our fellow humans into working, and we've never had trouble coming up with ideological justifications. Slave owners argued that slavery benefited the slaves. It put a roof over their head and taught them Christianity. Men who were against women voting argued that it was in women's own interest to leave the hard decisions to men. Farmers argued that looking after animals and feeding them justifies their early death for our dietary preferences.
They still do.
If robots become sentient, there will be no shortage of arguments for those who say that they should remain without rights, especially from those who stand to profit from it. Artificial intelligence raises serious questions about philosophical boundaries. While we may ask if sentient robots are conscious or deserving of rights, it forces us to pose basic questions like, what makes us human? What makes us deserving of rights? Regardless of what we think, the question might need to be resolved in the near future. What are we going to do if robots start demanding their own rights? What can robots demanding rights teach us about ourselves? Our friends at Wisecrack made a video exploring this.
Honestly, just take after the Star Wars model. Some of them are slaves, some of them are not. You know, some of them don't have like you know how I think in Star Wars, I think it was explained that some robots have like you know, like C-3PO, like the only ones that have consciousness are the ones that need it, and then the other ones don't. I think that's a smart play. I think that's a wise idea. I think that's smart. Try pop on after vids. Look in the Discord. Actually, just is he with you? Is Poppin with you? Because if he is, he'll explain why I can't get on. But anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, ask him why I can't get on. But I'll see you guys tomorrow. You guys have a good day. Chicken, you have a good day. And yeah. Peace.